Hey everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar on BYOA and BYOD Trends. You may be asking yourself, Ryan, what did you just say? So BYOA stands for Bring Your Own Apps and BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Devices. You know, we spend lots of time working on our clients' networks, their data security, their network safety, and we just wanted to make everyone aware of some trends that we've seen along small and medium businesses all along the Gulf Coast. In fact, some of these things are happening all across the country. So you can basically have a huge impact on your work, on your office, on your employees. If you allow them to work remotely, they can access their data anywhere from almost any device. So it can be a huge boost to productivity. At the same time, it can have just the opposite effect. It can be a huge security risk and even leave you open to lawsuits if you don't get this right. And it's not if you're going to allow mobile apps in the workplace, but really when you're going to. In fact, I would be willing to bet that everybody watching today has mobile apps already in use in their office now. So stay tuned for some of the tips you can take, you can follow to make sure mobile apps are rolled out properly and that you get the most bang for your buck. Thank you.
Well, thanks again for joining us for our webinar today on BYOA/BYOD. Again, that stands for Bring Your Own Apps and Bring Your Own Devices. If you don't mind, I may just call it the BYO trend for the rest of our webinar, because honestly, I'm kind of getting tired of saying all these letters together. So what is it? We mentioned it briefly earlier, but what is it? Well, this is the trend that we're seeing, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, where users are bringing apps into the work environment, into their office, that maybe weren't intended for that, or in some cases they were intended for an office environment, but maybe the office hasn't tested them and approved them thoroughly. So you may be thinking, well, this really doesn't apply to me. I don't have any apps in my office that are unsafe or that my people shouldn't be using. I know what's going on in my business. That's what we hear all the time. Well, these are just some of the very few apps that we'll be talking about today. For example, I have a few of these installed on my appliances, on my devices, on my laptop, on my desktop, on my phone even. And they're not necessarily bad in and of themselves, but when used in an office environment or used incorrectly, they can definitely wreak havoc. So as we mentioned, we'll be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly today of BYOA and BYOD. So let's go ahead and get the bad out of the way. So maybe thinking, well, what could possibly ever go wrong with allowing mobile apps into my work environment? Well, what happens in many cases, businesses just simply don't test the apps that their users are using. In some cases, they don't even know they're there. So of course you can't test them if you don't even know what's being used on your network. But in many cases, they know that they're there and they allow them because they assume that they're safe. Just in case you didn't know, everything on the internet is not safe. So we're seeing this more and more where businesses, they're allowing things, and honestly, they're opening themselves up for a huge security breach. We mentioned Dropbox a little bit ago. Well, Dropbox has some serious data security issues. They have about 100 million users, and most of the users of Dropbox admit to using it at work. So imagine that. You've got an employee that's sitting at your desk, and they have copied your important files up to their Dropbox accounts. They're synced to the Dropbox cloud servers, which we don't know where those are. They're synced to this employee's multiple devices, their laptop, their desktop, their home PC, and then Dropbox has a breach. Then boom, all of your data could be shared with the whole world. And while you may think that's a little far-fetched, here's something that we've seen a lot more of. Once data is moved into a Dropbox account, it loses any permission that may have been set on it previously. So imagine this. Imagine that you get upset with that employee or they make a mistake. You terminate them. Well, now they have all your files, and you don't even realize they have them. They may have them on their home machine. They may have them on their phone even. Or worse, that employee's happy to be there, still working for you, but they lose their phone. They lose their iPad with all of your files on it. Well, what are you going to do? We've seen that happen more and more lately, so that's one of the things we'll be talking about today, how to prevent that. Some people are still just saying, hey, in general, mobile apps are unsafe. We believe that they can be safe if used properly, especially if the right apps are used. For every unsafe program out there, there's a safe alternative, and that's what we've worked very hard to do, to either find or develop the safe programs that our clients need to do the same things that they can do with the unsafe programs. This is a story that that has shocked me every time I think about it. I'm still surprised. So when the Google Play Store for Android phones, when it came out, of course, all the big companies were releasing apps left and right, left and right. Well, Wells Fargo started getting phone calls saying, hey guys, your app's not working. I'm putting in my username, I'm putting in my password, I'm putting in my bank account number, and it's not working. Well, after they got a few of these, they started to kind of keep count, and they realized they were getting deluged with phone calls telling them that their mobile app wasn't working. Well, guess what? Wells Fargo didn't have a mobile app. Someone had actually created a fake app on the Google Play Store. They were basically pretending to be Wells Fargo, and they were gathering these users' bank account numbers, email address, usernames, passwords, of course, for the intent of stealing their identities and obviously emptying their bank accounts. So, big deal, big problem. It just goes to show you that things aren't always as safe as they seem. Let's talk about the real numbers here. Again, you may be thinking, well, this doesn't happen to me. My users don't use mobile apps. And as you see here, the bar on the middle says that the average company thinks that there are 2.7 apps used by end users in their business. So they think, okay, well, I know I've got a few in there, but on average, I think it's about 2.7. Well, we've actually found out that most small businesses have 21 apps in their organization. So it's much larger than most people think, more than 7 times the apps that most people think they have running in their business. What are the trends that we're seeing? Well, most users, when asked, will say that they believe that the BYOA trend will either stay the same or increase in the future. In fact, 77% of users asked believe that it's only going to increase or at least stay the same. So it's not going away, it's here to stay, and it's happening with all types of applications. Obviously, the easy things like social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, we assume people will be bringing those in, but the more serious programs like sync and sharing, that's the big deal. That's where you can have some serious data loss or data breaches if you're not careful. In fact, even social media can be dangerous. We had this issue we just heard of the other day. A local user, they were working late at a client site. They wanted to basically brag that they were working late, so they posted a picture on Facebook of them at a client's office working late. Well, guess what? They didn't necessarily check to see what was around them. It's very easy. Phones these days have very good cameras. It's very easy to pick up some confidential information laying on someone's desk. In fact, some medical offices, for HIPAA reasons, have actually started prohibiting mobile devices with cameras. So you think social media is not a big deal, but it can be. So keep that in mind. Obviously, the other programs, productivity, collaboration, remote access, those are all very, very good programs. But if they get into the wrong hands, it's still surprising me that over half of cell phone users don't have a password on their cell phone. Something as simple as a password can slow down or stop most would-be hackers or thieves. So something that simple, most people simply aren't doing it. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, if you don't do anything else, go put a password on your cell phone, on your laptop, on your tablet. So why are end users doing this? Well, at the end of the day, they're just not happy with the apps that small business owners are providing. In some cases, they're saying that there's nothing in place. So if there's nothing in place, of course, they're going to go out and try to find something to solve that need. But as we see from this graph, in many cases, there is an app in place. They just don't like it. So they're going to find another app that they think is better. Unfortunately, better for them does not always mean safer. So it's up to us, the IT department and the business owner, to make sure that we're only allowing the right apps in our business. So again, some of the trends that we're seeing is that in most cases, IT departments are not consulted, and when asked why, the end users just say, oh, well, we didn't think it was a big deal. We didn't see the need to involve our IT department. Or, we asked them a long time ago, they didn't seem to have an issue with it. Or, hey, I know they're very busy. They're always working on projects. I didn't want to bother them. The old saying, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And we're seeing that quite a bit. So again, IT needs to be involved with these decisions because some of the ramifications go a little deeper than most people realize. So again, it's not going to stop In the future, it's only going to increase. So make sure you are aware of that. And then again, some more trends that we're seeing. If you are a business and you're saying, okay, I see the benefit of using these apps. I know it will allow my employees to be more productive. What do I do? How do I start? We're seeing most people try to start, but they're stopping for a few reasons. Number one, they're thinking that, hey, maybe my data, maybe my security in the cloud is not as safe as it should be, or maybe I can't manage or control the applications that my users have on their mobile devices, or maybe they won't integrate with my line of business apps, or in some cases, hey, maybe they won't allow me to be compliant if I need to be HIPAA compliant or SOX compliant. Well, I'll tell you, we can definitely advise you on the last one, and we can help you with the top three. So if you're wondering, hey, how can I move this data into the cloud to be safe, by all means, we can help with that. In fact, we have developed several great programs for file sharing, for cloud backup, for remote desktop. There are safe ways to do all these things that your users are doing. We just need to educate them. So don't be frustrated. Don't feel like you've got to, run away and hide and you can't enter, the modern technology just because you're maybe concerned about security. We all want to make sure our data is secure, but there are definitely ways to do that. So more trends that we're seeing. If you have not been under a rock lately, you are aware that the new iPhones are out, the new larger 4.7 and 5.5 inch screen iPhones. These things are only going to make users use them more. In fact, with a better interface, a bigger screen, a bigger keyboard, they're going to be easier to use and definitely not harder. So in the future, we'll see users even using mobile devices more. So again, the trend is not going away. And just for all you Android users out there, yes, we know that you had bigger phones way before Apple did. So it's already easy for Android users to do a lot of their work on mobile devices. So what are some of the real risks that we're seeing? Well, BYO and cloud, they're really opening huge holes in firewalls. For example, you wouldn't allow users to work at home from an unsecured port or to connect to your server over the internet with no security. But really that's what you're doing when you allow your email or your cloud sharing or your remote desktop on these mobile devices without adequate security in place. Another real risk, they waste a lot of bandwidth. So almost half the bandwidth in the entire world is used by Netflix. In other words, people watching movies is about half the traffic in the world on the internet. And guess what? A whole lot of that happens during the day between 8 and 5. So don't let that happen to you. Obviously, if people are sitting around watching movies on Netflix or YouTube, then they're not being very productive. So we can see a huge drop in productivity. And obviously, it's a big distraction. So 4 things there to be concerned about. So not to be all doom and gloom, there is some good. What are some of the positive effects, some of the positive things that we see in the BYO trend? Well, it allows people to access their data from everywhere, from their phones, from their tablets. However you want to work, you can work. And not only how you want to work, but where you want to work. You can work just as easily sitting at home on the sofa as you can in the car driving down the road, obviously as a passenger, not as a driver. So it really makes this much easier. You're not tethered to a big desktop and keyboard and laptop anymore. Obviously, it allows collaboration with outside partners and teams easier than ever before. Mobile access and remote working easier than ever before. Document sharing easier. It increases productivity. People do work more. They're happier. So at the end of the day, it's really a good thing to do as long as it's done safely. So if you want to do this safely, as everyone should, what are your options? Well, the first option, do nothing. Obviously, that's not a good option because if you're doing nothing, then you're opening up these huge vulnerabilities. Sticking your head in the sand is not going to be the way to solve these problems. Second, you could lock down all the apps and just basically keep everyone under lock and key. The problem with that is that users always find a way. If you don't try to meet their needs, they're going to find a way to work around you and even try to work around IT. And sometimes they can do as much damage, more damage than you can imagine. The third option is really the best option: educate and monitor. You really need to train users, teach them the right ways to do things and why. obviously most users, they don't want to do anything maliciously. They're not trying to damage or hurt anything. They just simply don't understand the deeper ramifications for what they're doing. So training is a huge deal, and then of course monitoring it so you can really verify what's going on. You know the old saying, trust but verify. So why should you get IT guys involved? Obviously, I'm an IT guy, AGJ, we're an IT provider. So why do we need to be involved? Well, obviously you need to talk to your IT guys to make sure you're choosing, you're provisioning, you're managing the apps properly. We see this all the time. A company will approve an app, we will test it for them and say, yes, it's a good app, or maybe we've already tested it for another client so we know that it's safe. But when you add a lot of users, their infrastructure just can't handle it. We ran into this the other day at office, about 20 users in the office. So you'd say, okay, 20 users, they have about 20 computers. But no, these days we're seeing that the average user has about 1.5 mobile devices. So that 20 users turned out to be 50 devices because they had a desktop, they had either a laptop and a cell phone, or some of them had a tablet and a cell phone. A few of them just had cell phones. But basically, we went up from a 20 device network to a 50 device network, which means you have to make sure your routers, your switches, your firewalls can handle these extra devices and the extra throughput that they're going to be needing. IT should really be your facilitator and your integrator. You don't want them to be the gatekeeper that is, not letting anyone do anything. And by all means, you don't want them to be a casual observer that doesn't do anything. They really should be involved from the integration standpoint. In fact, we tell our clients, call us. If you have a business problem you're trying to solve, call us. We will help you solve it. And if a mobile app's the best solution, then we will help you find the right app, the safe app, and then we'll help you train and monitor your users so that they're working safely. So what should we do? What's the plan going forward? Well, of course, you want to work with IT to make sure the risk and the bandwidth are assessed, develop the management plan, and then just do it. Second, mobile device management policy and mobile device management software. Everybody who's on the webinar today will get a copy of our mobile device management policy. We recommend going through this. We've had an attorney look at it. However, we are not attorneys ourselves, so this is our disclaimer. Before you implement this mobile device management policy, make sure your attorney looks at it. Again, it covers you in case something were to go wrong. So this happened the other day. Let me tell you a little story. Talking to a friend of mine down in Florida. He owns an IT company. He had a user, a client. They hired a new employee. Everything was going great. She brought in her phone. They installed the mobile device management software. Now, this is software that we sell. We love the software. It allows us to track a phone, to erase it if it's lost, or if the employee was terminated, you can even erase it. It allows us to turn programs off and on. It's really a great program. So they installed it on her phone, and it was working fine. She started using company email. Everything was going great. Well, something happened down the road. They decided they weren't very happy with her, and she wasn't very happy with them. So she quit. Well, they logged into the mobile device management software and erased her phone. But guess what? That was her personal phone. She had never signed anything giving them permission to do that. So guess what that equals? That equals a lawsuit. So our mobile device management policy addresses that. It basically states that that if any employee is doing anything on their mobile device, that you have the right and the necessity to put the mobile device management software on there. And if that employee quits or is terminated for any reason, then their device will be erased, and they have to sign it. So at least you're safe if that were to ever happen. Another thing, imagine this. Imagine the employee is driving down the road, and you call them. They look down to try to find their phone, and they run into the car in front of them. Well, who's at fault? The mobile device management policy addresses that as well. You don't want users using the mobile devices in any unsafe manner. Here's another issue. Up in California, this happened a while back. There was a police department. They got tired of their captain emailing them at night because he kind of felt like, hey, if I email you at night, if it's urgent, I want you to reply back. They sued for overtime pay years back, and they got it. So you have to be very careful. If you have hourly employees that have mobile devices, if you specifically haven't told them that they can't use those mobile devices after hours, then you could be in a position where you could be sued for overtime pay. So again, mobile device management policy is very important. We'll talk about that again in just a minute. An acceptable use policy. We also like the acceptable use policy. We go through these with our managed service clients. This is basically telling people how they can use your network, your internet, basically telling users they're not supposed to be on social media, they're not supposed to be on gambling sites or porn sites or anything like that. Things that you would think are common sense. If you ever have to terminate someone for a reason like that and you don't have it in writing, it makes your life much more difficult. So an acceptable use policy is very important to have in place. Even as far as social media, what can people post? Can your employees post things about work? Can they post things about your clients? Can they post things about your vendors? What's off limits? The acceptable use policy can address all of that. And then lastly, a unified threat manager. We are huge fans of unified threat managers. In fact, we've been researching them for over a year. We've tested just about everyone on the market. We have an offering that we think is the best out there. Basically, a unified threat manager is a network appliance. It installs in your office, in your network, and all the traffic that comes in or goes out is filtered through it. So basically, you can see a nice, beautiful report. I'll show you some at the end of the presentation here. A nice report that shows you what users are doing. Not only that, but you can turn it off. Like you could say, hey, I don't want anyone to be able to hit Netflix from 8 to 12, but then they can see it on their lunch break, and then at 1 o'clock turn it back off. We can get very granular, or we can just say, you know what, block it all the time. Most offices ask us to turn it on in monitoring mode, where they're not necessarily blocking anything. We did this at an office the other day and found out that one of the users, we ran it for a month, came back, gave our reports to the owner, found out one user was on Facebook for 37 hours that month. So it took about a 5-minute conversation between the owner and that user, and they got that straightened out, and the next month that user was on Facebook for a total of 15 minutes. So in many cases, you don't have to be necessarily hard-handed, just have a conversation. It may show some weaknesses in your training. You may realize, wow, I've never really talked to people about that. I assume that they know I didn't want them on YouTube all day, but have you had that conversation? So it can lead to some great conversations there. We also like unified threat managers because they are a second line of antivirus with all the viruses floating around out there these days. Another layer of antivirus protection is a great thing. In addition to that, they do anti-spam tracking very well. And they're also, at least our UTM is also a firewall and VPN device. So you can make secure connections from your mobile devices if you need to, from your home PCs if you need to. You can connect back securely to the network. So that's why we are so big fans of UTM. So again, as we mentioned, everyone on the webinar today can download a free copy of our sample MDM policy. Again, make sure that you have your attorney look over it before you roll it out. Make sure you have everybody sign it. If there's a portion that's not applicable to you, of course, remove it. But in most cases, it's pretty good to go. Next, mobile device management software. We talked about that briefly just a minute ago. You may be saying, what in the world is this? So one of our employees was at actually on vacation a while back, and he called in and said, Ryan, I can't find my phone. I don't know what happened to it. And I said, well, hey, I'm guessing you've probably already tried to call it. Yeah, I tried to call. I don't hear it. I don't say, do you want me to wipe it? Because we have mobile device management software. Do you want me to log in and erase it? He was like, not yet. I don't think it's that bad yet, but can you help me find it? I said, sure. I said, well, let me pull it up on the map. So through the mobile device management console, I pulled it up, and this is the picture it showed me. It actually zoomed in and showed me that his phone was right here, kind of in the middle of this picture. And so I described it to him, and I said, it's between two ponds. And he thought for a minute, and he was like, that's the 18th hole of the golf course. Turns out he had been golfing on Pensacola Beach earlier that day. On the last hole, when he bent over to get his ball, the phone had fallen out of his pocket, was sitting there on the grass. I told him exactly where it was based on the mobile device management software, and within a few minutes he was back at the golf course and had the phone safely in his possession. I was able to lock it, so I remotely locked it. And if worse came to worse, if he wouldn't have been able to find it, we could have remotely erased it. So again, we really like mobile device management software. This is a tech tip that we recently did on UTM. So if you want to know a little bit more about UTMs, Unified Threat Managers, of course you can watch our tech tip or give me a call. I love to talk about these things. They're one of the greatest improvements in network security that we've seen in a long time. So of course, give me a call there. And then finally, thank you for watching today. If you have any questions, let us know. We really just want to make people aware of what's out there. Again, education is the key. If you know what's safe and what's not safe, then you can make better decisions. And again, we're not telling anyone that they can't do anything. We just want to help users find the safest, smartest way to work. And if there's an app out there that you really like that you think may not be safe, chances are we've got a safe alternative, whether it's cloud backup, whether it's file sharing and collaboration, whether it's team building, project management, whether it's secure instant messaging. We've got it all. So don't hesitate to give us a call. And again, thanks for watching. So here are a few UTM reports that we use. Obviously these benefit us managing the UTMs every day, but also they're important to you, the end user. So for example, this is our live feed that shows us the availability, the uptime of each device. We can use this to monitor any issues, or if there was a threat, we would be notified immediately. So this is kind of our live feed on the status of our UTMs in the field. This is a second report. We like this. It gives us the opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper. From this screen, we can turn features off and on. For example, if a client wasn't using the IPS feature, we could turn it off. It simply gives the client a little bit faster speeds. So nice screen there. This is my favorite report. This is the app report. This is a sample that we recently ran at a new client's office. They had over 211 applications running on the network, everything from YouTube and Wikipedia to Zynga. And some of these applications aren't necessarily bad. It's just a matter of them running on the network during the day. For example, some of these are games, and do you really want these games run on the network during the day? So we like this report. You'd be amazed. Clients oftentimes have much more running on the network than they think, and this gives us a quick glance so that we can make recommendations on running things smoother. We can obviously block these, or we can simply keep reporting on them every month to make sure the owner of the business knows what's going on. And then lastly, one of the reports that we use a lot is the IP report. This shows us which computers are downloading and uploading the most data. This happens occasionally. We'll have a client that calls and says, hey, the network seems really slow. We can run this report and immediately find out which machine is the culprit. Is there a machine that's uploading or downloading more than it should? Is somebody simply on YouTube or Netflix during the day when they shouldn't be? Things like that. So we can obviously control some of these things, but if you just want them reported on, we can report on them as well. So again, we normally aren't trying to sell something during our tech tip, but in this case, we felt that the benefit of UTMs, they're massive. We've seen them solve many problems from bandwidth to viruses. We are huge fans. We've researched this for over a year, and we've kind of rolled the perfect blend of services into our UTM offering. So if you want to ask us more questions, we're here. We'd love to talk to you, and we'll see you next tech tip. Thank you.